13 years ago, I remember Burning Crusade launch day. It was something I was so excited for, and I didn't really know what to expect because I was so young. I got home and braved the login queue to create my first Blood Elf and DRAENEI character. This expansion remains one of my favorites, although compared to a lot of modern WoW expansions, I feel it's in its own bracket. Blizzard recently released a survey asking players what they think of a Burning Crusade Classic server, and at this point I think it's inevitable. Here are 5 reasons why I'm excited for this concept, and I hope it comes to fruition. Number 5, zones and design. Remember when you were a kid and you stepped through the dark portal for the first time? I remember experiencing this unforgettable moment. I remember staring at the skybox in Hellfire Peninsula, and I was just in awe at this continent, knowing next to nothing about the lore. I think one of the most iconic moments in Burning Crusade is when you see that pit commander staring at you across the field as soon as you enter the dark portal. This is one of the most memorable moments for me in World of Warcraft, actually. Outland is a continent that tells its story of destruction through visuals. I remember seeing the spirit of Gul'dan in Shadowmoon Valley, having no real idea of what he did as a kid, but little touches like this can go a long way, especially after you learn the lore of World of Warcraft. Outland really feels like a desperate world, where there is no hope, no real life, but there is still some beauty if you look close enough. And oh god, those skyboxes are beautiful. Still some of my favorites in modern World of Warcraft, actually. Visually, my favorite zone is actually Hellfire Peninsula. From the skybox to the desolate feel, to the fell orcs and the different creatures you encounter here, it had such a variety, and it left a really strong impression on me when I was younger. I even like the eerie music that plays in the background. You also had really fun towns in Burning Crusade that were very memorable, my favorite being Thrallmar and Honor Hold. Outland has some of the most varying environments in World of Warcraft to date. In one minute you could be in Zangarmarsh, and the next minute you could just be in an absolute hellscape like Netherstorm or Blade's Edge Mountains. To this day, the art style holds up really well. Most World of Warcraft players I think can agree that Outland is absolutely beautiful, and I myself cannot wait to venture back here if we get Burning Crusade Classic. Number 4, dungeons. One of my favorite instances to this day is actually Hellfire Ramparts. No particular reason, just I think as a first dungeon to an expansion it works really well. Fell orcs, like I said before, are really cool, and at the time fighting a dragon was a really special experience. You didn't get to fight too many of them in vanilla outside of the raids from what I remember. This was also a very nice way to tease nether drakes, which we would get to see more of later on in the expansion. I'd be lying to you guys if I said I didn't do Ramparts a million times to get Hell Reaver, one of my favorite weapon models. To this day, actually, I use this transmog on some of my alts still. One great thing about the dungeon flow is we got about 3 dungeons per zone in BC. Hellfire Citadel provided us with 3 Orc dungeons. Zangarmarsh, we had 3 Naga dungeons. Terokkar Forest, we had 4 Auchendown instances where we had DRAENEI, the Ethereals, the Arakoa. It was a great variety. Netherstorm, we had 3 Blood Elf dungeons as well, but at the same time we got a lot of DRAENEI architecture from their raid and dungeon. Design-wise, I always liked this, and to this day Burning Crusade dungeons are among some of my favorites. In a way, it made the antagonists feel a little bit more threatening, and I guess more a part of their zones. Something I feel in modern WoW, we get that now, but for some reason it just doesn't feel built up to as much, and that might have been the flow of difficulty at the time that made it feel more built up to. In terms of length, each dungeon has a good pace to it, and none of them really outside of the Caverns of Time dungeons overstay their welcome. Burning Crusade also introduced heroic dungeons, which have evolved into the system we currently have today with Mythic Plus. This really laid the groundwork for what dungeons are, and that's something I can really appreciate what Burning Crusade did for the game in this aspect. Overall, I'm very excited to step back into the Burning Crusade dungeons while having BC tuning. I think it's going to be a really fun time. Number 3, DRAENEI and Blood Elves. One of my fondest memories were all the unleveled Blood Elves and DRAENEI I made as a kid. I inevitably did level a DRAENEI to max level during Burning Crusade, my DRAENEI priest, which I still have to this day. I don't really play him anymore. This character certainly has a lot of great memories on him, and he always fills me with nostalgia every time I log on him. He's actually a character I really gotta get to 120 at some point. I also really enjoyed the 2 starting zones we got, especially the Ghostlands and Bloodmist Isle. Although I will say Bloodmist Isle holds kind of a special place in my heart. I really like the Tabard of the Hand you get rewarded at the end of that. Both starting zones actually felt like they had good rewards at the end of them, whether it was the rep gear from the Blood Elf area or just the little tabard, little things to carry with you on your journey into Vanilla WoW. It was really, really nice. There isn't too much to say about the races other than it's nice to have them a part of the Alliance and the Horde again. For those who played Classic, I'm sure there are some that are itching to jump over to a Blood Elf or DRAENEI. This also was the first time that we got Paladins on the Horde side and Shamans on the Alliance. This was a huge change of pace. It actually changed the way classes worked in World of Warcraft forever. There would be no exclusive classes to either faction anymore. If I had to pick between the two, I think I prefer DRAENEI over Blood Elves, and if Burning Crusade Classic does happen, well, I do intend on rolling a DRAENEI as my main. There's no doubt in my mind that I'll play a DRAENEI mage when this is eventually released. For those of you that are fans of Pandaren, did you guys know they were actually rumored to originally have been the Alliance race in Burning Crusade? Mists of Pandaria was an amazing expansion, and I'm glad we got what we did from that, and I think DRAENEI fit the role a lot better in BC. As much as I love Pandaren, and I would have been really, really upset if we didn't get the Pandaren on the Horde. Number 2, the raids. Burning Crusade for me was the first real experience raiding I had as a kid. Now in 2020, I haven't gotten any better at the game. However, some of my fondest memories were pushing Black Temple weeks before Wrath of the Lich King launched on my DRAENEI Priest. We never downed Illidan or anything, but just getting a few bosses in was really, really epic. I remember we actually got to Gorefiend. Burning Crusade story-wise did the characters of Lady Vashj, Illidan, and Kael'thas dirty. However, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy the build-up to them and seeing them here. Looking back, I wish they were used differently. However, them as the trio here made for an interesting dynamic raid-wise. Their presence was felt before each of their separate raids, Serpentshrine Cavern, Tempest Keep, and the famous Black Temple. In my opinion, this was further improved upon in Wrath of the Lich King, but Burning Crusade laid the groundwork for this, and this is something that I can really, really appreciate. I think World of Warcraft is at its strongest when you have very strong antagonists. I think these guys, just due to their history, felt that way. Like I said, I think they did Vashj and Kael dirty in Burning Crusade, and they fixed Illidan and Legion, but at the time it was really cool to see these characters, so it'll be fun to kind of relive those raid moments and the build up to them. So the number one reason I'm excited for a Burning Crusade Classic server is the same reason I was kind of excited to see how Classic did, and why I think a Burning Crusade Classic is so important. WoW Classic has a huge player base, and I think it's understandable. A lot of people want to go relive these experiences in the same way that I really want to relive TBC and Wrath of the Lich King. I enjoyed Classic as a kid, but going back to it, I didn't play too much. I'd be lying to you guys if I said I did. I leveled an Orc Warrior with my friend to like level 22, but just the end game, it's really interesting to go back and see how Blizzard evolved things, how they've made things better, and how they might have made things worse. It's interesting, right? Like, one of the things I often hear people say about Classic is it's more about the journey leveling, and I think that's something they're trying to fix in Shadowlands with the leveling revamp, so I'm really curious about that. Either way, guys, I'm ecstatic at the chance to visit Burning Crusade again. I hope this is something Blizzard does consider doing, because I think a lot of people would get a lot of joy out of this, and myself included, I would play the hell out of it. Before we wrap this video down, I'd like to mention a few more things about Burning Crusade. So on the thumbnail of this video, you guys may have noticed Maiev and Akama, and I would just like to say these two are absolute gems in BC's storyline. I highly recommend you check out their lore if you're interested, and if you don't believe me, watch the Black Temple trailer. Seriously, Akama is such a badass. The other trailer I'd highly recommend you watch is the Zul'Aman trailer. It's one of the most memorable trailers in World of Warcraft, and again, just go check it out on World of Warcraft's YouTube channel. The only other thing I can really say about BC as well is if you want to fill in more of the story gaps, I highly recommend you read Illidan by William King. It combines the story of BC and Legion very well. You really, really should read it. It'll actually make you want to play a demon hunter. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Burning Crusade Classic. Are you excited for it? Do you not care about it? Are you more excited for Shadowlands? I'd love to hear below, and I'll see you next time.
You are not prepared!